Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us for another episode of the M365 Voice. My name is Sarah Haase.
And I am Mike Marani.
And I'm Antonio Mayo.
All right. Are you both ready to go?
Ready.
Perfect. We're going to choose another question from the jar today. So let's go ahead and do that. How do you use Planner?
Planner.
So we're kind of continuing the little series that we've had about how do you use OneNote, how do you use OneDrive, how do you use Planner. I am interested to see how this goes. Antonio, I'm especially interested to see if you fall somewhere in the middle between Mike and I being polar opposites on how we use all of these tools, because that's how it tends to go the last few episodes. Here's Sarah, here's Mike, and Antonio's somewhere in the middle.
Right. I don't know if that's going to happen on this one because I have a love-hate relationship with Planner.
Oh.
I have lost hours to my life in the past on Planner that I'm still trying to get back.
How did that happen? That's a good place to start.
Sure. So I do like the concept of Planner, and I love the fact that Microsoft introduced this lightweight planning tool. I think the emphasis, what I learned is the emphasis is on lightweight, right? Where I ran into issues with Planner, I love the way tasks are displayed. I love how it's like a Kanban board. You can actually use it like a Kanban board. I actually tried, when it first came out, I tried to use it to manage a project in an agile fashion where all of our user stories were tasks on a Planner plan. And that works nicely until you hit some of the limitations in Planner. And we very quickly hit the limitations in Planner, right? The two that killed me were you cannot have more than 250 unassigned tasks in a plan, and you cannot have more than 1,500 tasks total in a plan. And although for lightweight project management, task management, those numbers feel like it's a lot, when you do have a meaningful size project, it's really easy to hit that if you're trying to manage it in a real agile fashion. So what I kind of learned from that was it's not a replacement for something like DevOps, where Azure DevOps has a lot more capabilities for a lot more tasks. So maybe I was using the wrong tool in that case, but I'm still trying to get hours of my life back from Planner that I lost in that situation. Mike, yourself?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. That Planner, in my experience, is best if you are working on or managing a small project that does not require a big team with multiple or hundreds of tasks or thousands of tasks that you have mentioned. It becomes much more difficult to manage, actually. Becomes more of a nightmare to manage a bigger project in Planner rather than just a traditional project plan that I'm used to. So I tend to stay away from Planner if there is a big project that spans over multiple phases and have 6 months or more of implementation time frame because you have a lot more to add. And then I use Planner a lot when I have smaller projects with smaller groups of project members and very defined scope.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm gonna agree with Mike there. I think from a lightweight perspective, if you're working on a small subset, like a work stream on a larger project, I think Planner can work really well to help keep tasks straight between a series of, let's say, 4 and 6 or 4 and 8 people. But if you're managing a big project, if you're trying to do resource tracking and things like that, I think it can quickly become pretty unwieldy. One of the ways that I've had luck using it is to be able to literally hold like a weekly or a daily stand-up on what's currently in flight, which narrows the scope of what you're looking at. I actually like the way that Planner is laid out using that Kanban style, but I find once you get more than like 5 or 6 different buckets for your tasks, and if you're scrolling like crazy up and down vertically within a bucket to get to your tasks, I feel like you have kind of a nice swizzle point. If you can set your scope or limit your labels or filter your view or group by due date, and you're looking at a subset of thing that's anywhere from, let's say, 15 to 35 or 40 tasks. That's kind of the sweet spot of where it works well. I think if you're trying to manage broader beyond that, it just becomes really difficult to find even the tasks that you're looking for in any one context.
Right.
Exactly.
I would agree. Where we have started using it, once we got that concept of using it for more lightweight, I'll say limited scope kind of projects, is in our company, every time we have a new project for a client, we spin up a team. So what we have found really useful on some projects where there are a number of deliverables, and those deliverables are sometimes it's a piece of software, sometimes it's a configuration, sometimes it's a document, sometimes it's a set of workshops. Managing those, like creating a plan to manage those, and then, and this is going to sound very basic, but it actually does help a lot. Integrating the plan into the team through a tab, basically adding a tab to our team that shows the plan. And then, like you said, Sarah, on our weekly or daily stand-ups, reviewing that as part of our regular project updates, right? And sometimes we show that to our clients where, okay, let's have our status meeting. And our status meeting is not necessarily going through a status report, but it's bringing up that board and going through the deliverables, and they can see very visually where they're at. So that's been actually really nice for us.
Yep.
Yeah,
I like which projects we put it onto because of the point of just too many tasks makes it difficult, but it is nice. Sorry, Mike, you were going to say.
No, I was going to say the same thing, that one of the clients I work with, they do, they use Planner for multiple projects, and sometimes I am part of them, their project team. So from a lightweight perspective, it works really well, especially from the notification perspective. Things are coming up to you for me, and then I get the notifications. I go into the team. I can have one view of all my actual tasks within the different teams in Planner. So that helps quite a bit. It helps me kind of, especially if I'm not focused a lot on a specific area of my business, and I have to log in to another tenant that gives me all the view of all the tasks I have to do from different projects. This is really, really helpful. If you have to do it with a project plan, it's a disaster because you have to open multiple places. So having one place to go to and having a notification, having a summary of what I have to do, what's coming to you from different plans in Planner, it's so much helpful for me to kind of make that I'm staying on top of my tasks.
Right.
I really wish, though, that they would make a better integration between Planner and Outlook, because I don't like the automated emails that you get from Planner. Either the email that says you've been assigned to a task in Planner, I frankly just find kind of annoying. And I find that people don't look at them, they just auto delete them. And I don't like you have tasks due, you have tasks that are past due in Planner, because it sort of just bulk tells you a status update of you're late on. I just auto delete those two. And what I wish is that I could somehow flag individual tasks in my Planner plan that are like key things that I need to follow up on. What I want is a single click on Planner to be able to add them into my Outlook tasks pane view in my Outlook calendar, because we've talked about this a lot, that I still like using those Outlook tasks. I want a better integration point so that I can somehow see whether it's all of my Planner tasks, I don't know, but I want to be able to flag some Planner tasks and somehow have them appear somehow near my calendar in Outlook. And I feel like there just isn't a good enough integration point between those two.
I agree. One source of pain I've had with Planner was the integration with Flow. So I don't know if it's gotten better since I used to work on building a lot of flows as part of a particular project, or Power Automate flows, back when it was called Microsoft Flow. And when Microsoft Flow / Power Automate first came out, it had a connector for Planner. And using that connector was a bit painful because it was what's called a polling connector, where it would poll periodically, as opposed to using something like a webhook, right, for more immediate notifications. And the way the connector was built was painful because when you'd make a call to create a task, you could not pass it all of the details of the task.
Mhm.
You would have to make a call to create a task, and then you'd have to make another call to populate it, but you'd have to wait a period of time between them because you couldn't call it immediately afterwards because the task wasn't done getting created yet. So there was all this kind of, the connector had its issues. I'm hoping it's gotten better, but I haven't tried it in a while. So, along similar lines to what you said, Sarah, I do wish there was better, like you said, integration with Outlook, but also better mechanisms for automating task management.
I would agree with that. And here's the question, Antonio, and when you and I talk about labels, it's almost always sensitivity labels, but
Yeah.
I like the labels in Planner. I love that we can make them color coded and that you have more choices in the color coding.
Agreed.
But sometimes I find that when I've gone to the work of creating labels for one project, I would sure love to be able to reuse those labels effectively in another project.
Yeah.
And I know of no way to be able to do that or even to drive label consistency across projects. So imagine if you're a PM, right? And you're using this as a lightweight project management tool, and you want to even use the same types of labels for some of your key project milestones. You're going to have to manually click, 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 click to recreate those in every planner plan, correct?
That's right. I don't think there is any way. I think it is manual every time.
Exactly. And one of the things that I kind of love and don't like with Planner, if you have a task and you have a checklist, sometimes you have a task that is owned by multiple people, and the
Right.
checklist is also owned by those different individuals. You cannot assign a checklist to those different individuals, unlike you do with other tools. So sometimes you go and you put this plan together, and you have all the different buckets, and you have different people, and you have to assign this task 2 or 3, and you have about, let's say, 10 checklists that you have to complete within that. Sometimes you go back and like, who's supposed to do this checklist? You don't really remember who's supposed to do this checklist. There's no way for us to assign a person to a checklist. Rather, you assign it.
Sorry, when you say checklist, Mike, do you mean within a task,
Within a task, yeah.
subtasks that you
Yeah.
can have that have a little check mark beside them?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so you create a task and you basically, it's a subtask, but you cannot assign a person to a subtask.
Yeah.
No.
And then if you have like 10 subtasks, sorry, then you go back a month later, I'm like, am I supposed to do this, or someone else is supposed to do this? And then you just end up doing it, or just ignore it, and then hoping that someone's gonna do it, or communicate that back with the other team members and, yeah, what are we supposed to do with this? So this is one of the things that I don't like in Planner.
Yeah. Something that I looked at a couple of years ago after Planner first came out, but I haven't looked at since then, and I'm wondering if you guys have a better view on this, is the relationship between Microsoft 365 groups and a Planner plan. Because I get asked this a lot. And so are you guys familiar with when I create a Planner plan, an Office 365 group gets created behind it?
Correct.
Correct. And then in that group, you've got owners and members.
Right.
And what are the different capabilities, or is there different capabilities in the plan for if you're an owner versus if you're a member?
I don't think there is any difference from a capability perspective.
I didn't think
I
so.
don't think that there's a capability to set up permission differences for the owners versus the members, other than I would assume that maybe owners can't edit the high-level plan details, like the name of the plan, et cetera, potentially. But I've never gone into that.
Yeah, I've never confirmed that either, but I didn't think so.
Correct. There is no difference, like Sarah mentioned, only probably the plan name cannot be changed.
Yeah.
By the member. Everything else is the same.
Okay. And then if the opposite happens, so I create a Microsoft 365 group, does a plan automatically get created for it?
No.
No.
You have to actually go into the group or the SharePoint site and click on the planner to initiate that. Because the planner data is stored in different data storages. You got SharePoint, you got Exchange, and you got some Azure data storage as well. So all those tasks are stored in Azure data storage. So that does not get initiated up until you click on it or create it with an existing group.
So how do you do that, Mike? I have a Microsoft 365 group. right? Let's say I created a team and there was a group created for that team. There's no plan yet. So how do I go create a plan associated with that group?
So you have couple of options. One is you can go into Planner and say add to an existing Office or Microsoft 365 group, or from SharePoint site on the left nav, there is I think it's called Plan in SharePoint. You click on it and it creates the planner for you.
Okay, and it gets associated with the group that's associated with that site.
SharePoint site, yes.
As long as it's a modern team site.
Correct.
Okay, very cool.
It's very interesting, and I think this takes us back to a discussion that we have really frequently on the podcast, which is how are you going to enable your users to create new planner plans, especially if that spins up in a Microsoft 365 group behind the scenes? Because with Planner being a lightweight project management capability, I think it's going to be a situation where your users you'd want it to be highly responsive, meaning they're in a meeting, virtual or an in-person meeting. They said, let's create a planner plan and a Kanban board for this particular initiative. You don't want a long time delay between when they think about wanting to do that and they actually get their planner plan. So if you as an organization aren't going to allow them to self-service fulfill those M365 group requests and create their own planner plans, how long is it going to take? And how arduous is the process for them to request a new planner plan and then to have you fulfill that? Because I really think that in a way, Planner is a lot like creating a new Yammer community, for example, that when you have that initial idea, it's got a relatively short time to live where it will successfully convert between an idea and a successful reality. And that time delay between the two it'll live or die by how long that time delay is.
Agreed.
Right. We've talked about that before, and I agree. The longer that time delay is, the less likely someone is to actually remember why they created the plan, actually make use of the plan, really adopt the tool. And I think to solve that, organizations have to position what Planner is for their organization, right? And what its limits are as well, right? Because you still have organizations using Microsoft Project for big kind of mission critical projects.
Right.
And Planner is not that, right? Planner is also not something where you should store, I think, sensitive data or data that needs to follow some sort of a retention process, because there is no retention capabilities for a Planner plan, right? It really does need to be something that, okay, I'm going to build this for some purpose that perhaps is not mission critical, but it's important to me. And if the data within the plan just goes away, our organization will be okay with that. Right.
And I think it's more of a sell for a small group tracker, maybe more than a full project management capability, because I'll be honest, where I've successfully used it is when I want to track a very narrow quantity of tasks for a very small group of people. And frankly, once a task is completed and it moves off the active board or active view in Planner, I almost never go back and look at it again.
That's right.
It's really a short-term time frame management style.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be positioned well to users that way. That here's what it's for. It's not a full-blown project management tool, because all of that data that you might want to keep for audit purposes later, it's kind of going to go away, or it's going to be hard to get back to sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, and a way to introduce it, to have some adoption of it, is to include it in, if you add task by planner in Microsoft Teams, it's a way for the end user to go and start exploring how they can manage the task or the projects through Teams Planner. Because you can add different tasks as a to-do, or you can add different tasks as part of the plan, and you can have one view that shows everything from within Teams as well. So it's a good way to kind of introduce that tool to the end user.
Yeah. I'm always on the fence on the self-service question about enabling self-service, because I've seen many situations where enabling self-service creation for various things is great, and other customer situations where the customer doesn't really want to have that, and self-service doesn't really work in their organization, or that they have good reasons for not having self-service. But Planner is something that I think really does benefit from self-service group creation.
I would agree. A low
Yeah.
barrier to entry, because given the perspective on what we're saying that it's useful for, I think a high barrier of entry is going to rob you of the ability to hit that sweet spot.
Agreed. So if you do disable self-service group creation, users cannot create a plan, can they? They necessarily have to have a group, right?
Correct.
Unless they already have a SharePoint site or a team, so the group is already created, then they can create that plan.
Right.
Gotcha.
So we didn't disagree much on this episode about Planner. I think it would be interesting. We're going to have to put our heads together on this one, because I wonder how successfully we could create and use a Planner plan between the three of us for this podcast. There's something to think about that might lead to a little bit more disagreement about how we work a Planner plan.
That's right. All those
Perfect.
email notifications getting deleted.
Yeah, we don't want those. Perfect. I love this episode and I love the topic. So we hope all of you enjoyed it. Any final thoughts?
Use it to plan your day, plan your projects lightly.
Yeah, understand what it's good for and what it's not good for, so that you're making the best use of it.
Yeah, I would agree. Try it out on something first that is not a mission critical or a very large and deeply scoped project with a lot of milestones and key project members, and you'll be better off. Use it for a lightweight small group effort first. And
if you're using a team to manage a project, and you're going to use a plan, then integrate it with your team, because it makes it really easy to get to. Agreed. Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for the content. Love this episode. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.